Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Now, does your violin go out of tune really quickly? I'm going to give you three reasons why that might be the case. But before we get into this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel and comment underneath the video, as it does help with the YouTube algorithms to help get my YouTube channel out there a little bit more. I'd also just quickly like to make everyone aware that I have a Patreon page, and for just $5 a month, you'll gain access to my complete back catalogue of almost 1,000 pieces of violin sheet music, which are added to on a weekly basis, as well as MP3 backing tracks for the violin performance covers, and some easy piano music as well that cover literally every genre from Chopin to Adele and everything in between. If you are interested, further details on my Patreon page can be found in the link just under here, and I will also put a link underneath this video and in the comments as well. Main reason why your violin is probably going to be going in and out of tune is going to be problems with your fine tuners or your pegs. So a lot of violins will have the fine tuners at the bottom. I've only got one. This is obviously this is an antique professional violin. I don't need the tuners on there because I tune everything from the pegs, because that's the way my peg box is set up. But you could have a little problem with the tuners that are going up here, or more than likely it's going to be the peg box. Now, this is probably going to be a general problem if you've got a cheaper violin. So the cheaper violins are just, they're not really, they're very counterproductive violins. So they're not great violins to have anyway, because they are just quite poorly set up, really. So, you know, they're, in my opinion, you know, they're not really good instruments to start on, because they hinder you in so many other ways. And I appreciate that people don't want to spend a lot of money having a go at something they might not continue with, but it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy and a bit of a catch-22 situation, because you're paying so little for a violin that the violin is so poor in itself in every single aspect. You learn the violin, you sound like absolute trash, you don't want to play it anymore, and then you think the violin is rubbish, whereas that's not the case. 90% of that will be the violin issue and not you. Were you to play on something that was $200, $300, $400 worth, you wouldn't have those issues that you would be facing if you had a cheaper violin. So tuning the violin is a big problem to start with, because if you can't tune the violin, you can't even get on and play the violin, because you need to tune it first. So if your strings are going out of tune quickly, then it's going to be something going on with the peg box. So aside from the fact with the cheaper violins, these peg boxes, they snap, they crack, they break. I've seen it dozens of times on students when I've gone to tune their violin. You know, the pegs, nothing in here is nice wood. The pegs are not ebony. The pegs don't even fit through the holes, so you're fighting with a lot of it. The pegs don't slide nicely through the wood as well, so they end up cracking, and you know, you crack the pegs, and once you've done that, you can't just go out and buy another peg, because the peg has to be sanded down to fit the exact width of the hole. It gets into a whole thing. So if you are having problems with your tuning, and you do have a nicer quality violin, then it could just be that you need a little bit of peg paste, or you need something in here just to help the pegs to slip a little bit. You can use a little bar of soap. So, you know, like the old just bar of soap that you get. You can take the peg out, obviously take the string off, take the peg out, just rub a little bit of bar of soap, because it will give you a nice little bit of slip without, you know, oil getting everywhere or anything like that. And it can just give you a nice little bit of slip here so that you can move the pegs. If you've overdone that a little bit, get a little bit of talcum powder on your fingers and just take the peg out again, dampen down the kind of the soap, if you like, and that will kind of put a little bit more traction in. So I've done that before on this back in the day. This has been a little bit tight. I've not been able to get to a violin luthier. I've unstrung my violin. I've taken the pegs out, rubbed a bit of soap on, put it in, and then of course when I go to tune it, the pegs are slipping. So I've obviously put too much soap on there. So take it out again, a little bit of talcum powder, just, you know, it'll just take away the slip of the soap. You know, Bob's your uncle, everything's fine again. But like I say, if you do have a cheaper quality violin, it might be worth investing in a better violin, or you can try and use those same fixes on those. Actually, you can use the bar of soap, something like that, and the whole talcum powder thing, peg paste, if you've got anything like that. But if you can't get hold of that, you know, pretty much everybody can get hold of a bar of soap. It's pennies to buy. Okay. The other reason why your violin might be going out of tune quite quickly is changes in temperature. Now, I live in the UK, obviously, as you can tell from my accent, and that kind of thing just isn't really a problem with us. We don't have extreme heat. We don't have extreme winters particularly. We did actually last summer, I tell a lie, summer 2022, we did have a particular heat wave. I didn't even touch the violin during that period. Luckily, I didn't have any weddings. That was one sort of particular week. I didn't have any weddings or events, but I didn't even touch my violin for that reason. I just kept my violin in its case in a cool dark cupboard upstairs in my room, and that was it really. But I do know that if I am playing in extreme heats, then I mean this is terrible. This will go out of tune quite quickly and quite badly. I usually find as well, if you've got gut strings, they are the worst for going in and out of tune, and they are so sensitive to temperature controls as well. So if you do live somewhere slightly more sensitive, somewhere very humid, I mean, I've taken my violin to Mexico before. That's very humid and very hot there. That was a little bit of a nightmare, but I wouldn't use any gut strings or anything like that. So if you are living in somewhere where it is very temperature sensitive, so it is extremely humid, hot all the time, very cold and then hot, whatever, then I would try and keep the violin as consistent as you possibly can, but definitely avoid gut strings. If you go with gut strings, you'll probably just find they will just be going out of tune too much. The third reason why that might be is that your strings need replacing. When the strings are just dead, they're just losing all their kind of their sort of stretch a little bit, like an elastic band just being overstretched. They can sometimes unwind themselves as well. I've had strings start to sort of unwind up here. It doesn't happen so much on the E string and the A, but mostly on the D and the G. Again, depending on the string and environmental factors, heat, humidity, hot, cold, that kind of thing. They have sort of unwound from here a little bit. When they start unwinding, it's generally a good indication that you need to change the strings, because when they're unwinding, they're starting to get weaker and weaker. It's like the twine of a rope untwining itself, and it's getting weaker and weaker and weaker, and then eventually it will just snap. So if your strings are dead and they are ready to go, then you might find that you're tuning them and you're tuning them and you're tuning them, and it's still not happening, and there's nothing wrong with your pegs. The temperature is absolutely fine, the humidity is absolutely fine. Then your strings could just need replacing. So thank you very much for watching today's video. I hope it has helped you, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.